Internet friends, my name is Lexi and welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing a massive book haul. So I usually like to divide my book hauls by age category, so I'm going to go ahead and start first with YA. So the first YA book that I have is actually a graphic novel, and it is Mooncakes by Wendy and Suzanne Walker, and I don't know how to pronounce Wendy's last name, but it is XU. And I actually already read this graphic novel. I flew through it. It was so cute. This is a really sweet story. It follows Nova, who is doing her witch training, and she lives with two of her grandmothers, and her old friend comes back into town who is a werewolf named Tam, and they rekindle some of their unspoken feelings and they kind of become a couple, but they have to kind of figure out this mysterious thing that's happening. There's like this demon possessed horse and they have to try to figure out what the deal is with that. And it's just a really sweet story. I thought it was kind of a little bit like a slice of life story, but mixed with a pretty interesting twist as well. I just had a really fun time reading this, and the art in it is so beautiful. If you are in the market for a new graphic novel, I highly recommend Mooncakes. The next one that I have here is The Grace Year, and this is by Kim Liggett. I hope I'm saying that name right. And this is a little bit of like a dystopian story. So the premise basically is that I feel like it's in a time kind of set similar to ours, but basically in this time, the people in this world, which is similar to our world, all believe that girls possess a type of strange magic that happens when they are 16, and it can lure men to like leave their wives. It can drive boys crazy. If you're 16 years old and you're a girl in this time and place, you have these unspeakable powers. And so they send all of the girls off when they are 16 to have a grace year away from society so that they can burn off all their magic. But no one talks about the grace year. No one knows what happens. Some people don't come back from grace year. So it's just kind of following what actually happens, what's going on. It sounds like it has a really cool modern feminist twist. It sounds like it's gonna have a lot of commentary that relates and pertains to today. And I'm just really excited to figure out more about what happens during the grace year. Next, I found kind of a steal of a deal at my local used bookstore because this does not look used. I don't think anybody used this. It's a book of the month club. I'm so excited about it. I love finding books that are just brand new at used bookstores. It makes me so happy. It even came with the book of the month. What are these called? Bookmarks. It's called a bookmark. This is Little and Lion by Brandy Colbert. So I don't know a ton going into this. I know that it follows a girl named Suzette who is coming home to visit her family in LA from her boarding school, I believe. There's a lot of different discussions in here. Suzette is bisexual, I believe. Her brother suffers, I think, from bipolar disorder. So we've got a lot of different representations right off the bat. We've got mental health, we've got different sexualities. And then I believe that Suzette actually ends up falling in love with the same girl that her brother is in love with. I don't know anything else, but it sounds really intriguing and I can't wait to pick this up. So next I have Dress Codes for Small Towns, and this is by Courtney Summers. And this book has been on my radar for quite a while. I actually met Courtney Summers at a librarian event years before, and I wanted to purchase this book there, but she was all sold out. However, it's continued to be on my radar because I know Kayla from Books with Lala loves this book, and I know that she talks about it a lot, and I feel like we have very similar reading tastes in certain regards, so I have always wanted to pick this up. And then recently I've also seen Chandler read this and love this from a taste test that she did from sampling Kayla's favorite books, and so I had to pick this up. I'm really excited about it. I really don't know a ton going into it. All I know is that it's a coming of age story about a girl who is kind of discovering her sexuality and that it's supposed to be really powerful. and I'm really excited to learn more about it. Next, I have another 2 graphic novels. By the way, some of these books might seem familiar if you have seen my Spookathon vlogs, and that's because I did briefly show them, I think on the first day of Spookathon, so sorry if some of these are repeats. But next I have 2 different graphic novels. I read these for my 24-hour readathon that I did with my friends. I will link that up above if you want to watch a 24-hour-thon, but I loved both of these. The first one is Through the Woods by Emily Carroll, and this is a very scary, very cool short story collection. I thought it was really, really well done. I thought that the illustrations in it were stunning, and I loved reading this. I've already read this one, and I think that it's perfect if you are interested in something kind of spooky. And then the next is Pumpkinheads, and this is written by Rainbow Rowell, and it is illustrated by Faith Erin Hicks. And this is a super, super cute story about 2 best friends who work at a pumpkin patch, and this is their last time working at the pumpkin patch before they both graduate high school and kind of go their separate ways. And it's just a really, really sweet, beautiful contemporary story about these 2 friends. I loved it so much, and I thought that it had all of the warm and cozy vibes. Plus, I am a huge fan of the illustrations. Next, I have The Deathless Girls, and this is by Kieran Millwood Hargrave, and I feel like this is one of the most beautiful covers I've ever seen. I think it's just so ridiculously pretty. Oh my gosh. So again, I'm going into this one fairly vague, but this is about Dracula's wives, and apparently 1 or 2 of them fall in love with each other. We've got vampires, and we've got female-female relationships, and we've got dark and spooky, and even if October is over with, I don't care. That just sounds so cool, and I need to read it like really, really soon. Next, we have a little bit of a creepy book, and it is The Things She's Seen, and this is by Aibileen and Ezekiel Quaymolina. I don't know. I read the first sentence at Barnes & Noble, and it completely hooked me, and it says, "Nothing's been the same for Beth Teller since she died." And like, what an opening. Obviously, I'm gonna buy this book. So, I don't know a ton about this, which is the theme for all of these books, but I know that it's about a girl who has passed away, and the only person who can see her is her father, who is drowning in grief at the loss of his daughter, but they kind of have to solve a mystery together before she can move on, and it sounds really, really cool, and I'm really, really excited. Next, we have Spellbook of the Lost and Found, and this is by Moira Fowley Doyle, and I have heard amazing things about this book. I've heard that this is very reminiscent of magical realism, and it has like tons and tons of whimsy in it, which as soon as I heard from multiple people, I was like, yeah, I really need this in my life. If you are unaware of my personal reading tastes, I really go for things that feel like magical realism and that are magical realism. It's kind of like my favorite magic. I honestly don't know a lot about this. I know that it involves a spell book, it involves witches, it takes place in Ireland, and it has elements of magic and magical realism in it. And I mean, that's really all I needed to know to pick it up. So I'm just really, really excited to read it. Next I have We Are the Ants, and this is by Sean David Hutchinson. And I have heard mostly good things about this, although some of my friends haven't loved it, but I'm very, very excited to read this. I can't wait to read this actually. It's supposed to be very reminiscent of Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five, which is one of my favorite books of all time. This is actually a recommendation from one of my best friends, Allie Corvair, whose channel I will go ahead and link down below. You should totally check her out if you like my taste in books. We have very similar taste in books. Again, I don't know a lot about this book. I know that it's about a boy who I think just broke up with his boyfriend and I believe is abducted by aliens, which honestly doesn't sound like my jam, but again, if it's like Slaughterhouse-Five, I really think that I'm gonna love it. And basically he gets to control whether or not the Earth survives, or like mankind survives, or if everything just kind of goes away. Like, so I guess the fate of the world is in his hands, but he's just been going through it. So it's a commentary on life and choices and the meaning of life, and it sounds really, really cool. So I'm very excited. Next I have The Graces, and this is by Laura Eve, and I am so excited. This is another used book find, and again, does that look used to you? It looks brand new. It's like finding, oh, and my receipt's in here. It's like finding buried treasure, you know? I love bookstores and I love used bookstores and oh, I'm excited. Also, look at how pretty the naked cover is. That is beautiful. But I happen to love it with the dust jacket as well. It's just so pretty. So this is about a person named River, and River really wants to belong to a group of people called the Graces. And the Graces all seem to have some magic about them. And I think River really, really wants to be included, but apparently to become a Grace, it takes a lot. And I have heard mixed things about this. I think that it's supposed to be really dark, kind of twisted, a little bit magical, a little bit of a group friendship dynamic going on, and I don't know, I'm really into it, so I'm excited to read this. Plus, genuinely, I'm obsessed with the cover. It's so pretty. Okay, next I bought Winterwood, and this is by Shay Earnshaw, and I absolutely loved The Wicked Deep. I read that last year. That was my first buddy read I did with Allie, and we had the best time, and if you have not picked that book up, I highly recommend it because it's phenomenal. And so as soon as I heard that Shay Earnshaw was coming out with a second book, I immediately had to snatch it up. So this, again, centers around the theme of witches. It's about a girl named Nora who I think is a witch, and she has a lot in common with these witches called the Walker Women who live in the forest. And she goes into the forest one day and discovers a missing boy named Oliver who has lots of secrets that he's trying to hide, and he's been missing for weeks. And it kind of just takes off from there. So you learn a little bit about Oliver, you learn more about Nora, and it sounds really wonderful, but also I would read anything Shay Earnshaw wrote just because I really loved her debut novel so much. So I'm very excited. She has really awesome, lush, and descriptive writing. So if you're into that sort of thing, I think that you'll love The Wicked Deep, and hopefully The Winterwood as well. Next, I picked up The Beautiful, and this is by Renee Audier, and I feel like this has been definitely making its rounds around BookTube, so I'm sure you've heard a little bit about it, but if you have not, it takes place in the 1800s in New Orleans. It's about a girl named Celine who kind of discovered this underground world of vampires. And so it kind of just takes off from there. There's a romance, there's all of these different mysteries involved. It's kind of dark. It sounds really, really wonderful. And I'm so ready for all the vampire books, honestly. Like, I'm just living my best life and I'm just so excited. Next I have Rules for Vanishing, and this is by Kate Alice Marshall, and I actually read this one for Spookathon, so if you've seen those vlogs, you already know my thoughts on this, but I loved this book so much. This is a paranormal thriller, and it is terrifying. Oh my God, it's so scary. This is about a girl named Sarah whose sister Becca goes missing on this fabled road. And there is like a road basically that will sometimes reappear in this town, or it's rumored to appear on this town. And on the road is the ghost of Lucy Gallows, who is this little girl who died years and years and years ago. And Sarah is just convinced that this is where Becca is. And it's kind of like a mythical paranormal road. There's lots of rules to this road. Basically, if you get on the path, you cannot leave the path, and you have to go through all of these different challenges to reach the end of the road. It is very dark, very twisted. I liked the twist a lot at the end, actually. I thought it was really cool, very scary, but yeah, it was wild. I loved it so much. I highly recommend it, actually. I thought it was great. There's also a female-female relationship in Rules for Vanishing, which I thought was really cool too. Next, I have another spooky read, and that is now entering Adamsville, Time to Face Your Demons. Ooh. And this is by Francesca Zappina, and oh, I didn't know that she wrote Eliza and Her Monsters. I've heard really good things about that book. I really need to pick that up. Anyways, so this is about a town that is supposed to be haunted by ghosts, and most people don't believe that. Most people think that it's kind of like a tourist trap kind of a deal, but the main protagonist, Zora, knows that the ghosts are in fact real. When she is blamed for a crime that she didn't commit, she knows it has to do with the ghosts and supernatural, and she kind of has to clear her name and therefore, I think, convince her friends and family that she's innocent as well, or something like that. So we've got some ghosts, we've got a mystery, It sounds really, really cool. And also, what a spooky, spooky cover. Like, oh my gosh. Next, I have Dreaming Darkly, and I have to admit, I kind of bought this because of the cover. It's really freaking cool. And so you've got this really neat looking cover, and then it says, "It's all in her head." And I was like, okay. So I'm just gonna read this because it sounds so crazy, and I don't want to miss any of the details. It says, Ivy Bloodgood's mother is dead, and she should probably be sad about it, but she isn't. Mariah Bloodgood was a confusing mix of protective and abusive, a manipulative personality who never told the truth about where she came from, who Ivy's father was, or why they were living their lives on the run. Now that Ivy has been sent to Darkhaven, an island off the New England coast, to live with a rich uncle she didn't know existed, she is forced to reckon with her mother's past. Ivy can tell right away that there are long-held family secrets buried within these walls, but when she wakes up from one of her nightmares covered in someone else's blood, Ivy fears that whatever demons her mother battled while she was alive have come to roost in her own mind. Yes. And I think this is my last YA, I'm not sure. But of course it's Rainbow Rowell's Carry On. Oh, it's not Carry On. It is Rainbow Rowell's Wayward Son. This is the continuation of Carry On, and I loved that book so much. It's such a fun, exciting book. I've heard that this one is a lot more sad and that it deals with a lot of really, really sad topics. It has a totally different feel apparently than Carry On. But I loved Carry On, so I'm really, really excited to read this one. I'm not gonna talk about what this one is about because it is a sequel. However, Carry On is essentially about Simon and Baz. Baz is a vampire. Simon Snow is the chosen one. They both go to this kind of Hogwarts-esque school, and they're mortal enemies and roommates, and maybe kind of, sort of also like each other. So that's it for YA, so let's go ahead and move on to adult. So the first adult book I actually am already reading. I'm like on page 55, and that is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, and I have to tell you, I love this book so much. I'm completely obsessed with it already, and I'm only on page 55. If you did not know, Erin Morgenstern wrote The Night Circus, and that is one of my favorite books. I feel like the writing in it is so incredibly lush, and she's just such a masterful storyteller. Like, I really respect her as an author. I just think that she's brilliant. This book has so many elements of things that I think so many people are going to love. It is basically a book for people who love stories. This is about a boy named Zachary, and when he is younger and he's walking home, he sees a door, I think in an alleyway. It's like painted onto a wall. And it's kind of one of those moments where he thinks that if he goes up to the door, it will transport him into a place like Narnia, or like when Alice fell down the rabbit hole. He just has this instinctive feeling, but he decides to walk past the door and not open it. And the way he reasons with himself is that he can't be disappointed that it's not real if he doesn't try to open it. Years and years later, he is a college student. I think he's in his master's program working on his thesis for, something involving media. Like, he has his thesis revolving around video games, I believe. He believes that video games are a great storytelling medium, which I love. I love that Erin Morgenstern is incorporating different things other than just books as well, because it's totally true. There are so many awesome video games that have amazing, epic storylines to them. So anyways, this book is about him discovering a book in his library. And when he picks up the book, he realizes that he's in the book, and he might get a second chance to go back to the door that might sort of possibly lead him to another world. And so it has every element in it. It has the portal fantasy, it has the young little kid going into the portal fantasy, but it's a missed opportunity book as well, and it's kind of an ode to storytelling and story lovers and book lovers and video game lovers, and it's got everything, and I just love it, and the writing is just so perfect. I mean, I will be shocked if this does not end up being one of my favorite books of the year. Seriously, it's so perfect. Next we have Ninth House, and this is by Leigh Bardugo, and I'm sure you have seen this one making its rounds as well. This has been very, very popular on BookTube, and of course I had to go out and buy it. I love Leigh Bardugo. I think her Shadow and Bone trilogy is really excellent. I've yet to read Six of Crows yet. I really need to pick that up, but I wanted to finish the trilogy first. Anywho, this is Leigh Bardugo's first adult fantasy, and I'm really, really excited. I've heard it is pretty dark, but I've also heard it's just really, really excellent. This is about Galaxy Alex Stern, and she is accepted essentially into Yale's program, and she kind of learns all about these secret and occultish societies at Yale. And it kind of delves into the secret world of all these secret societies. I believe there's a little bit of magic. I think it's also a story about surviving some pretty dark topics. So please check out the trigger warnings for this, because I don't know all of them, and I don't want anyone to read this who maybe would be uncomfortable or triggered by a very serious topic. However, I am really excited to pick this up. I'm really excited to read this. I've heard excellent things about it, and I'll probably be picking this up right after the Starless Sea. Okay, so I only had 2 adult books this time, so now we are gonna go straight into middle grade, and I do have quite a few middle grade books to share with you as well. So let me start with some of the finds that I found at my locally used bookstore, and that is The School of Good and Evil, A World Without Princes, and then also The School of Good and Evil, Quest for Glory. These are hardcover editions for a series that I absolutely adore, and it's called The School of Good and Evil. I have not read this book. I read this book. But the first book, The School of Good and Evil, is essentially about 2 best friends, Agatha and Sophie, who are kidnapped by someone and taken to the School of Good and Evil, where Sophie believes that she is going to be sent to the good side to learn how to become a princess, and Agatha is going to go to the dark evil side to learn how to become a witch. However, it's flipped. Sophie gets sent to the evil side, Agatha to the good, and it's just a fantastic adventure. It's a great story about feminism and friendship and what it means to be saved and what it means to save someone else. It's hilarious. It's got a lot of really excellent commentary on it, and I feel like it's a series that really doesn't get enough attention on YouTube, so if you have not checked it out, you totally should. But these are just additions that are gonna go along with that series. Next, I picked up another 2 books that are gonna help me start to complete a series, and the series is actually the Septimus Heap series, and I've got here Physique, and I've also got Flight. So let me just say that it has been actual years since I have read Magic, so I don't fully remember the synopsis, but I do remember that it opens up with this father who has, I think, like 6 kids or something, and he finds a baby in the snow, and he's confronted by a wizard who says, don't tell anyone that you found this baby, like say that this baby is your baby, to which he agrees. And kind of like there's all of these different events that unfold from that. We learn who the baby is, and there's like lots of magic involved. There's a really great adventure involved, and it's just, I remember it being wonderful and so fast paced, and I actually really want to reread it and see if my feelings are the same because I loved it so much. So these are just going along with that. And again, I can't believe these are used. They look so brand new. I'm so happy. Next, I got this really cool edition of The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman, and I had to special order this one. I read this book for I think it was my Ghost Stories vlog, and I absolutely loved it. It's a new favorite middle grade for sure. I highly recommend the audio specifically for it because I thought it was just phenomenal. It's about a boy named Nobody Owens. His whole family has been murdered when he was a baby. He wanders into a graveyard and he is essentially raised by ghosts, and it's just impeccable. Like, the writing is just so 10 out of 10, you know? It's perfect. And I saw this, and I saw that this was going to match my Coraline edition, so I had to get this. For anybody who wants to know, I ordered this from Book Depository. Next, I've got a couple used books as well. So I found The Penderwicks, and this is by Jean Birdsmall. And I found this again in the used bookstore, which is so cool because it's brand new. So this is just about a group of 4 sisters who go to an estate during the summer and they find a new friend. I think he's like the neighbor, and they all kind of have summer adventures together. Don't know a ton more than that, but it's been getting tons of great reviews. It's the winner of several awards, and I have been really meaning to read this book for such a long time, so I'm really happy that I finally own it. Next, I have this, and this is a compilation. I believe it's an anthology. It's called Unnatural Creatures, and the stories essentially were selected and curated by Neil Gaiman, and they are lots and lots of different stories from a variety of authors who are writing about magical creatures. It's supposed to be a little bit dark, but it is for middle grade, and I had to get this because I love Neil Gaiman. I thought that the cover looked so cool. I don't know, it just kind of called out to me. There's something about it that really got my attention, so I had to pick it up, and I'm really excited. I'm probably gonna try to get to this before the end of the year. Yeah. Next, I have Dead Voices, and this is by Catherine Arden. Technically, this is the sequel of her Small Spaces series. I don't know what the series is called, but the first book in the series is called Small Spaces. And again, I read this one for my Ghost Stories vlog, and I really liked this book a lot. So this is about 3 best friends, and they all go to a ski lodge for the holidays, but the ski lodge happens to be haunted by ghosts. It's a very, very dark and creepy story. I loved it so much. I thought it was also awesome as far as friendship stories go. I thought that all of the characters were really well developed. I just have a lot of respect for Catherine Arden. I feel like she's an amazing writer. I still have not read Small Spaces. I would probably suggest that you read that one first. I have that on my wish list. I might ask my parents to get it for me, or maybe my sister-in-law or something, because I do really want to read that book. But yeah, I really love this one a lot. It was terrifying. Next, I have Watch Hollow, and this is by Gregory Fanaro. And it says, deep within an enchanted woods, in the town of Watch Hollow stands the once grand Blackford House, whose halls hold a magical secret. A giant cuckoo clock that does more than tell time. But when the clock's gears cease to turn, an evil presence lurking among the trees begins to come out of the shadows. I am so here for this. Next, I have another popular favorite, and that is Night Books, and this is by J.A. White. And I think that the cover is so intriguing. Oh my goodness. I love the opening of this one too. It says, Alex has loved scary stories his whole life. He never imagined he'd be trapped in one. So this is about a boy named Alex who sneaks out in the middle of the night, and I believe he's captured by a witch. And I think Alex's only chance of surviving being kidnapped by this witch is by telling her stories. And luckily, Alex is an avid reader and loves tons and tons of scary stories, so he can kind of keep her occupied. It kind of has an Arabian Nights kind of a feel, except he's telling her scary, spooky stories. It's just got lots of elements that I love. I love the witch element. I love the scary stories element. I love the retelling of stories element. So I'm very excited. I have very high hopes for this book. Next, I have The Woods, and this is by R.L. Tolson, and I love the cover. I think it looks so incredibly beautiful. I picked this up again because it's one of those automatic buys, because it does mention in here that this is magical realism for middle grade. So this is about a girl named Lenora whose family passes away, and so she goes to move with her estranged uncle. He basically tells her that she is forbidden from going into the woods. The reason she's not allowed to go into the woods is because her cousin went into the woods years ago and he died, and so now her uncle wants to destroy the woods. But because of all of her loneliness and grief, the woods call out to her, and she goes into the woods and finds a new world of enchantment. This book is kind of talking about grief and sadness, and it's got a lot of really interesting vibes to it. It's got that magical realism vibe, it's got a little bit of a sad and lonely vibe, but it also kind of reminds me a little bit of The Secret Garden. I'm very excited to pick this up. I think this is going to be a really hard-hitting book. Next, I have Shadow School, and this is by J.A. White, who also wrote Night Books. books, and that's kind of why I picked this up. They were next to each other and I was like, yeah, I'll just get them both. This book is about a girl named Cordelia who goes to a school and she finds that there are ghosts in the school. I think she learns that the ghosts are trapped at this school for a very sinister reason, and so she and her friends have to figure out a way to free the ghosts. So it sounds really, really cool. I'm very excited. I love ghost stories, obviously. Like, I think that they're so fun. So I can't wait to pick this up. And then finally, my very last book for this haul is the new illustrated edition of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. And I'm so excited. I love these books so much. I think that they are amazing. The illustrations are always gorgeous. This happened to be one of my favorite books in the series when I was reading it as a kid. I really want to reread this now. Look at some of these illustrations. Like, bam, so beautiful. Bam, look at those dragons. Oh. This book has brought me so much joy. I'm so excited. Well, you guys, that is it for the very first part of this book haul. I know it was really, really lengthy, so if you stuck around to the end, thank you. Have you read any of these books? What did you think of them? Please tell me down in the comments. And as always, if you have any book recommendations that you think I will like or love, please let me know as well. I always add them to my Goodreads. I always appreciate them, and I feel like I get most of my recommendations from you guys, and I'm always really, really appreciative of it. Thank you again so much for watching. I love you so much. And until next time, book lovers, keep your head in the clouds and your heart in a book. And I will talk to you later. Bye.